Hi friends, Carl here again with Calm Survival, and today we're looking at a slightly different component, something that's probably going to be more important around home in the urban environment where most of us spend most of our time. So we're talking about cell phones and cell phone power packs. Now, one of the first things that you can do to help prepare yourself for any situation is, if you have a smartphone, take advantage of the emergency contact and emergency medical information features that most modern smartphones have. Something that I think a lot of people overlook, and there's a small chance, but there is a chance that it will help you out, making sure that phone numbers are in there correctly, things like that. If you have an older phone and you still want to have emergency contact information available, the prefix in capitals ICE in case of emergency, that in front of an emergency contact, so you just make a second contact for that person, put that ICE. Not everyone's going to look for that, but a lot of people, if they find you and they find your phone, they are going to be looking for that as an indicator of who to phone. The next thing to do is to download an app from an organization called OpenSignal. And basically what that's going to do is, as it just runs in the background, it's a really small app, it monitors the signal strength and your location. So it helps generate a crowdsourced map so that you can check and you can see where in your local area are the cell phone dead zones. You can check based on carrier, based on signal technology, and that's going to help you in a situation where you're at low signal. It helps to know which way to go to get to where a good signal will probably be. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about battery packs. There's a lot of different varieties out there. The Wirecutter usually keeps a very good running review every year. They go back through and they double check. The main thing is we want brands that make electronics, not just brands that make anything or outdoor brands. Might sound odd, but the outdoor companies, Goal Zero, Brunton, they don't make as good of general purpose battery packs as companies like Aukey. This one is an Intro Circuit, and Anker also make really good battery packs. Now, for size, everybody's seen the little tiny lipstick size ones. If you need one for a handbag to just get you by, that's totally fine. I carry one of these 10,000 milliamp hour battery packs. And basically, what I'm looking for is I want to know that I can run my phone for a while. It's not worth it to me to only carry half of a phone charge. How do you figure that out? Well, you find out the listed capacity of your cell phone's battery. GSM Arena is a great way to find that out. It's also a great way to find out if there's different variations of your phone for different markets. So it's better than just doing a Google search. You can actually do comparisons on the hard data. You take that number, you take the number of your battery pack, divide them together, and give yourself about a 25% range of just leeway in favor of the lower end. So in this case, the phone that I'm currently using is a Motorola Moto G7 Power. So it's got a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. That means that I'm going to get under two full charges on one of these. But in the comparison, the battery in my phone is kind of on the big side anyways. Why is that important? Well, if you just take the charges 2 cell phones or charges 5 cell phones number that's on most of the marketing, we're still talking the old style flip phones. They had small batteries. They lasted a long time, but they had small batteries. So that's one of the things that's worth looking at. Also, a single big battery is going to be more efficient than a bunch of small batteries. It's going to be more cost effective. It's going to have a better overall lifespan, and it's going to be more efficient. Both of these ones have little LED flashlights built into them. I don't really think that's necessary. I don't understand what the use for a undersized flashlight is going to be, and I would rather save that power for something else. But they're on a lot of them, so it is what it is. This one has a very accurate percentage charge. I don't think that's necessary either. This one just gives me lights. It's either full or it's empty. If I'm home and this has been used, I'm charging it up. So that's a factor. The power cable. The shorter, the better, and we want good quality ones. You actually can measure the wasted power on cheap and over-length USB cord. In this case, because both of these charge off of our normal older style mini USB or micro USB, and most of my phones now have USB-C. Little chiclet adapter just means that I have one cable instead of two, but I do carry more than one of these because they're not super reliable, but this is a good quality cable. And a couple of other little nice to haves. This is an older style on-the-go cable, but I think the better option is just an on-the-go USB stick. In the case of being away from power, being in an emergency situation, being able to copy some photos or some information onto something you can hand to somebody could become very, very useful. Contact details, and if you've seen my other video on the digital bug out bag, keeping that information on this and away from your phone, there's some things you can do with that. You can lock down a USB stick and you can do that in ways that you might not necessarily be able to do with a phone. Okay, so that's something worth considering. General use. When the power goes out or you're in a low signal area, the best way to maintain the power in your phone using that power efficiently is just make sure you're using what you actually need. So airplane mode is going to shut down the broadcast signal. If your phone isn't getting a good reliable signal, it's going to turn up its own basically signal volume. It's shouting to the cell tower for a reply. That's going to burn through your power. Same like if you're yelling, you can only do that for so long. If you have good signal, your phone talks quieter. It uses less power. So using that, if you have a fairly new phone, turn the power save, the low power mode. I push that. I mean, on my phone, this phone will run all day and not get below 50% easily. So I run the power save mode to kick in pretty high up. That's something to do. If I was in a low signal environment and I knew it was going to be that way for several days, power save mode goes on. With most of the newer phones, you're better off running it in power save mode and leaving it on rather than turning it off and turning it on again. Unless you're only going to turn it on to check messages a couple of times a day, anything more than that, you're just better off leaving it with the screen off on power save mode because you're not running the power to boot everything back up again. With the power packs, once you're charging your phone past about 80%, you're not getting as much efficiency. So if you can watch your phone and charge from 50% to about 80% and just top it off a little bit at a time, you're going to get more of the juice out of this more efficiently rather than wasting it, especially the last 5%. Getting all the way to 100%, definitely not worth your time if you're just using one of these. Now, in the home situation, being able to recharge if the power does come back on, really, really important. So having a multi-port charger that can handle charging everything back up for, if the power comes back on for a couple of hours, being able to take advantage of that is definitely worthwhile. Having a small backup kind of burner phone, something to consider as well. Or you can just keep an old one around, keep the battery at 80% charge to keep the battery from swelling, especially if it's an older phone. And then you just have another backup. So we've talked about the battery packs, we've talked about the cables, we've talked about some of the other accessories. Obviously, technology progresses really, really quickly, and so there's always new things changing, but it's worth always keeping in mind that your phone is probably going to be a big part of the event, whatever the crisis is. So it's worth having that as part of your plan to keep that phone going. One of the things that has happened in a few big events recently is the SMS system getting overwhelmed. So when you send somebody an SMS, if it is like a storm or a crisis thing where a lot of people are going to be texting, put the day and date in your text message. Most people's phones only record the time received. So that person may get your texts out of order and they won't necessarily know if you're okay, if you need help, if you're not okay, they won't know what order those happened in. So adding the time and date, that can really help. Getting into a bit more in depth, if you're not able to make a phone call because there's too many people, sometimes a text gets through. But another thing that if you're right on that edge, you're just on the edge of cell signal and you don't quite know if you're going to be able to make a call or make a phone, get an SMS out, wait till after dark. As soon as the sun is below the horizon, the sun is basically a giant radio interference beacon. And as soon as it's below the horizon, you'll often find that you'll get that 1 bar of reception that you need. And if you didn't already know, those bars of reception are kind of a placebo. They don't really mean much. There are some apps that you can use to actually detect that. You probably already know that if that's something that if that's part of your world. So if you're thinking, I need to send this text message, it's super important, wait till after dark, send it out. And also things like iMessage or MMS, they're not as efficient, they're not as able to be broadcast on the normal cell service. So make sure that you try to send an SMS, but also sometimes if you can get Wi-Fi signal, or depending on your carrier where they do kind of the quasi-combined Wi-Fi thing, sending out messages, not spamming them out, but just multiple different methods of sending a message can be a good way to get a message out. Because once SMS blocks up, it takes a very long time for those messages to get delivered. I've had messages delayed for a couple of days for really no good reason. So hopefully that's a bit of an overview on some of the things to consider, to keep in mind. I'll post some links in the description so that you can take a look at those. But remember the basics, have extra batteries, have good cables, and make sure that you've got the accessories that are going to work in your lifestyle to make sure that if you need to make a phone call, it's always going to work, or as much as it can. And if somebody says they've got one weird trick to make a phone call work, they don't. The laws of physics rule all. There is no magic special sauce. If the phone can't work, the phone can't work. Okay? It's different from emergency services picking up the phone call from a phone without an active account and things like that. That's different. But if there is no signal, there is not a satellite that can pick this up yet. There is not some secret magic sauce. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. Alrighty, I will catch you guys next time.